Chevrolet are understandably proud of the fact that they invented the SUV class. It happened with the Suburban, and now, 75 years later, they have the Captiva. But as with so many things in life, just because you're the first to do something doesn't mean you're still the best. A good example of that notion is this car. The updated Captiva isn't the most expensive SUV you can buy. In fact, at 300,000 Rand, it's not badly priced at all. So it should come as no surprise, really, that it's not the best either. But sadly, its shortcomings aren't all budget related, which is a pity because it started off so well. I took the original Captiva on an epic drive from Dam in Lesotho to Johannesburg, and I came away impressed. What made it good was its combination of decent looks, a nice interior, and a good ride setup. And in this new version, those things haven't really changed. And in some cases, things have been improved. The looks of the Captiva is now more American than ever, thanks largely to what Audi would call a single-frame grille, but what Chev call a dual-port grille. Add to that a new set of headlights, and the Captiva manages a sort of chunky urban look that is attractive. It is the right size, it has a measure of attitude, and this lower spec LT version even has a set of stylish 17-inch wheels. The front of the Captiva is where all the changes have happened. You'll have a hard time spotting the difference between this updated version and the original from the rear. Also unchanged is the interior. Well, when it comes to the seating arrangements anyway. There are still 7 seats, and the last row of seats can be folded away completely into the boot floor. New materials and finishes have made what was a good cabin even better. Although in here is where this car's flaws start to show up. You know that expression, the devil is in the details? This is the clock in the Captiva, and ordinarily a clock is neither here nor there. Except this clock and its controls, surrounded by a cabin full of good materials and ergonomics and design and 300,000 Rands worth of car, looks like it belongs in a very cheap Chinese import. It is horrendously bad, even more so when compared to the rest of the interior. Other details? The spec of the Captiva LT includes Bluetooth and steering wheel mounted audio operation, but no cruise control. It's got aircon, electric windows, and an electronic parking brake, but no trip computer. It's an odd mix of features in here. Things you'd normally take for granted are replaced by things you'd consider to be extra cost options. But given its SUV label, things like space and versatility and a full-size spare wheel are all part of the package. There are 2 engine choices in the lineup, a V6 and this, a 2.4 four-cylinder with 123 kilowatts and 230 newton meters. Our test car is an all-wheel drive version with a 6-speed manual gearbox, but you can opt for a front-wheel drive only with manual or automatic gearbox. I'll start by saying that the auto is the way to go. I'll explain why in a moment, but I just need a minute or two to gather my thoughts about the gearbox in our test car. First, let's talk about the engine. Given the figures, you'd think it does a decent job in here. You'd think. But it doesn't. It just doesn't feel like it's got enough go to get this car off the line. There's almost zero bottom-end torque. When you see the Captiva from the outside, you're like, okay. And then you get inside and you're like, okay. And then you hit the accelerator and you're like, okay. If you really want one of these cars and you can't afford the V6, my advice is save up until you can afford the V6. It's just such a pity because this car feels really good otherwise. The chassis and suspension have been uprated and it is a very comfortable drive. This all-wheel drive version makes do with the usual on-demand system. It operates in front-wheel drive until it detects more grip is needed, at which point it can shift up to 50% of the power to the rear axle automatically. Now, about that gearbox. This 6-speed manual is 2 levels of bad. First, there's the shift action itself. You know that sensation when you crack your knuckles? And there's that simultaneous feeling of tension relief and a bit of pain. That's what shifting gears in this car is like. You literally have to force it into gear every time, and it is unpleasant. And then there are the gears themselves. They're just too long, which may contribute to the engine feeling like it's got no power. On the highway, this Captiva often requires downshifts to overtake or to conquer a slight rise in the road. And if you're thinking this car is better suited to life off-road, you're sort of right. It has things like hill descent control, but it also has a front lip spoiler that gives it the ground clearance of a porcupine. So, things to consider when buying a Captiva. The looks are good and the interior is good as well, although it has a clock that costs 15 cents and an odd mix of features. The ride setup is as good as the manual gearbox is bad, and the engine would probably fare better with an automatic. Overall though, it is an average SUV, and in a marketplace as competitive as the South African one, being ordinary isn't exactly a strong selling point. A 2.4 motor with 123 kilowatts doesn't sound like a bad start, but with very little low-end torque and a manual gearbox with long ratios, this Captiva feels underpowered. It's a better-looking package with true SUV space and versatility, but the odd mix of interior features and an underperforming engine means it's not the strongest contender.